Have you ever felt like you made a choice, but something just didn't feel right? That's not freedom, that's a tactic, and it's called the illusion of choice. In today's episode of the Manipulation Files, we'll reveal how manipulators give you options that are really just different roads to the same trap. The illusion of choice is a psychological tactic where someone offers you options, just enough to make you feel in control. But every path benefits them, not you. It's not real freedom, it's pre-selected obedience. You feel empowered, but your outcome was already engineered. Examples? You can break up now, or wait until I cheat. You can work late or miss your bonus. You can stay quiet or make this worse for yourself. Manipulators use this tactic to maintain dominance while appearing fair, flexible, or even generous. They know humans want autonomy, so instead of direct control, they use coercive framing. Both options are framed so you feel forced to choose the lesser evil, and blame yourself for the consequences. The brain loves choice. It lights up our reward systems and makes us feel confident. But when every option is designed by someone else, you're not choosing, you're complying. Over time, this tactic creates learned helplessness. You stop seeking better alternatives because you think the bad ones are all that exist. Ask yourself, who benefits from these choices? Look for invisible options. Is there a third or fourth path not being offered? Trust your discomfort. If the decision feels rigged, it probably is. Real freedom includes the ability to say, I reject both options. Manipulators want control, but they also want to look like they're giving you power. Don't fall for the illusion. If you've ever been trapped in a choice that didn't feel like one.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of Iconic Freedom, the Formula. We are setting a standard for accountability and responsibility, the ownership of your choices and the ability to respond to those choices. Let each care for self and all will be cared for. So today's podcast is really kind of an interesting one, this manipulation disguised as a choice. And, one of the ways people manipulate is to get you emotional, because when you're emotion, you're out of reality. We often think that, we're giving choices, like that clip said. We think that we're empowering other people, but, we're really just manipulating to get what it is that we want. And most of us actually have learned it long before we realized we were even doing it. Manipulation doesn't always look like a con game. Sometimes I think it comes across and it looks like maybe good parenting or good leadership, or people are just, they're just trying to help. But it really is kind of a sleight of hand in virtue signaling that negates all the goodness intended because it's motivated. And the self-interest is an appearance, an image, rather than a byproduct of your own generosity of spirit. So, said differently, that a lot of times people offering choice really is the manipulation. They think that it's good for the other person, but it's really good for them. Why? Because we know, why questions? The reason is because we know that all of your interest is self-interest. Everything is motivated by your desires for an outcome, whatever that is. That could be appearance, it could be image, it could be any number of things. So, from childhood as a kid, adults, they shape us and they fit their comfort zones, whatever their agendas are. And it's all under the banner, well, not all, but the majority of it, of, what's best for you. So here's the part that I think is kind of dangerous. And I say dangerous because it leads people to make choices and do things that they might not otherwise do if they hadn't had the influence of this type of manipulation. When you ignore your inner authority, you start depending entirely on your external authority. That's how you end up adopting someone else's standard and thinking it's your own. When you ignore your inner authority, you start depending entirely on people outside of you. So as kids, we seek approval. I mean, like oxygen, frankly. It becomes our very life force, if you will, our vitality, our existence. I mean, we rely on others in our life when we're very young, especially. We go down the road of, be good, don't upset mom and dad, make the teachers proud, listen to the judge, obey the police, blah, blah, blah. Listen to the minister, all that good stuff. But approval, I say, is tied to survival. And that conditioning doesn't just vanish. Society keeps reinforcing it with every authority figure that we meet. Whoever your boss is, leaders in the community, politicians, your priest, your doctor, even like cultural icons, celebrities, and, all that kind of stuff. People having influence, basically telling you to listen to them instead of listening to your own inner authority. Now, one of the things that I like about this, and I like about what this podcast offers you, is it doesn't offer you a choice as manipulation. It just offers you a choice. You do with it whatever you wish. You can listen to it. You can try things out, trial and error, or you can just ignore it and never listen to it again. But the choice is always there for you. Eventually, those authority figures that live in your head will follow you throughout your lifetime. You will literally hear their voice when you go to make a choice. That rhymes. And you never stop to ask, do I even like this? Do I believe this? Do I endorse this? Is this my standard even? I mean, real integrity, when you think about it, begins with like this one, frank and brutal question. Is this my standard or someone else's? Blind acceptance is not a virtue. It's an avoidance. It's refusing responsibility for your own life. It's easy just to accept without question what somebody else says. You dodge accountability, and by dodging accountability, this is how you give away your freedom. Question your beliefs. Question your filters. Question everything that you think you know about yourself. And be willing to come undone, to dismantle that matrix that you've been living and building your entire life in. There's this bias conversation that we had previously. We're told that bias is bad, that we shouldn't have any. But that's impossible. We're all going to have bias. The real question I would ask is, do you know what yours is? And do you know which one serves you? And which ones maybe are poisonous? Do you think about them? Or do you just seemingly walk through life unconscious to the choices and the things around you? This idea of mimicking socially acceptable bias isn't growth. It's performance, frankly. It's trying to pass this type of social purity test instead of passing your own integrity and character test. If you don't dare to face the truth of who you are, you're running your own scam. And you'll never have peace. I guarantee this. You will never have peace. Let me say that again. You will never know peace, no matter how hard you try. You'll always have the bumps in the road, the roadblocks ahead, and the never-ending delays and stagnations. There'll always be somebody else to blame for the outcomes that occurred. Okay, so this forensic series we've been doing this year, here is a forensic truth. If you are constantly triggered by the world, you're not perceiving it clearly. You're perceiving it through your wounds, through your bias. And when you're shocked by what other people do, it's often because you've never checked yourself. An unchecked bias is not just emotional quicksand. It keeps you stuck, reacting instead of responding. The hardest thing the hardest work that you will ever do is dismantling the standards and stories that were never yours to begin with. Literally coming undone. In humankind, you can find your fortitude. You can face the reality within yourself, no matter how uncomfortable it is. Because when you live from that truth, no one can manipulate you in betraying yourself again. And you no longer want to manipulate others, disguising it as a choice, which is what becomes our motivation and our self-interest. We see the self-interest, we see the motivation, we know what we want, and then we, in ways that seem kind, I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse kind of thing, is what winds up happening. And that's a game. That's a scam on yourself. That's a scam on your integrity. You are free to do it, absolutely. But if you're looking for the peace and harmony in your life where things just flow naturally and easily, that ain't it. You're truly going to have to come undone. You're going to have to manage your reality, which means being out of emotion and into reality. You're going to have to, in a sense, look at everything that's been told to you, and through trial and error, ask yourself, does this resonate with me? Is this who I am? And if it's not, then it's time to change it. But if you're still playing games with yourself by showing or thinking you're offering choice when you're really not, you're really just trying to get people to do what it is you want so that the outcomes come out to be what you want, like in that first clip that you saw. That's going to be tough, and you're going to have a long road to hoe. I would hope you don't choose that, but that choice is up to you. Okay, so we are at the end of another podcast. Hey, hit that like button if you would. Share it with your family and friends. You never know how it might support them in their endeavor. All those fun links are below, and if you're inclined, feel free to subscribe on Buzzsprout. I am on X and Truth Social and TikTok and Facebook and Instagram. And until next time, stay sharp and stay free. And as always, remember, let each care for self, and all will be cared for. See you next week.